This recording aims to talk about the elements and principles of art through photography. The elements of art are the building block of design. All good design will have one or more of these elements: line, color, shape, form, texture, space, and value. This presentation aims to show you some illustrations of these elements through photography. It could also be done through other art methods such as painting, fashion design, sculpture, etc. So a line is one-dimensional and can vary in width, direction, and length. Lines can also define the edges of a form. Lines can be horizontal, which is kind of this way, vertical, which is long way, or diagonal, straight or curved, thick or thin. Lines lead your eye around the composition. So in this photograph by Alfred Stieglitz, the artist chose to use the element of line to really tell a story. So right here is the emphasis. The line is the main part of the photograph. And the artist was choosing to kind of show the dividing line between the haves and the have-nots. So you can see in 1907, it looks like a photograph of a big boat, and the people that lived in the boat, or who were actually stowing away in the boat, and then others that were going overseas. So you can really see the difference between the costume and what they're wearing, and also the different kind of way they're standing. So on the bottom half, you can kind of see they have laundry there. You kind of see them with kind of turbans. And then on the top, you see a lot of men. You also see the top hats, and they seem much more the haves and the have-nots. I also like to kind of think of this as a good description of the Titanic, where Rose would be on the top and Jack would be on the bottom. Color is the next element of art. Color has three main characteristics: hue, which is the color name, red, yellow, and green; value, which is how light or dark it is; and intensity, how bright or dull it is. Colors can also be described as warm, which would be red or yellow, like a fireplace, or cool, like blue or green. Furthermore, there's monochromatic colors, which is one color plus its tints and shades. So tints would be adding white, so think of pink, where red is adding white to make a pink, and then shades would be a darker color of it. Complementary colors are colors that are opposite each other on the color wheel. Example, red and green. And then analogous colors are colors that are next to each other on the color wheel, like red and orange. So this photograph is by a lady named Sandy Skoglund. She is a professor at Rutgers University. She actually built this set. It's about a 10 by 10 set where she actually planned it out for about a month, where she goes in and then she paints the entire thing blue, and then she sculpted these fish. It's from 1981, so it's actually pre-Photoshop. And I kind of like to bring this up to my teenagers as a really good psychological photograph. I've heard all sorts of different things, all sorts of interpretations. It is called Revenge of the Goldfish, and it's from 1981. So one of my favorite interpretations is that maybe the boy fell asleep and he woke up having a dream about the goldfish that he accidentally that he flushed down the toilet, and so now all of a sudden he's in the fishbowl himself, and all the fish that he mistreated beforehand are all now taking their advantage of him, taking their revenge on him. This is another photograph by Sandy Skoglund. I like this, all the Cheetos, completely Cheetos. It looks like there's mannequins, but then there's also people wearing their Cheeto dresses. I love the ambiguity of her photographs. She doesn't really offer an explanation of what it is, which makes it even more fun. This is a good example of shape. Shape is two-dimensional with a height and a width. Organic shape would be a shape made by nature, not completely defined, so something you would see like a rock or a mountain in nature. And inorganic shape would be man-made, such as triangles or rectangles. This photograph is by Laszlo Mihaly-Nagy. It is a photogram from 1924. And what a photogram is it is objects that are placed on a light-sensitive piece of paper. And then they have the enlarger kind of flash a light in it, and so then you get the outline of the item. So for example, this looks like it's a compass, so you see the outline of the compass, and it looks like a piece of glass right there too, so pretty interesting. This is a good example of form. So form is three-dimensional, has height and width and depth. And photographers emphasize form by the use of highlights and shadows. So think of highlights as where the light hits the most. So that's the brightest part of a photograph. So right here is a good example of highlights, right here, right here, right here. And then a shadow is the dark area of the photograph. It's where there is an absence of light. So there's no light in there, so the least amount of light would have the darkest part. So there's a shadow right over here, and there's a shadow over there, and there's a shadow over here. And this is done by Ansel Adams. It's called Mount Williamson's Clearing Storm, 1944. He's known as a very popular photographer who does landscape photography. He actually did this with an 8x10 view camera. So if you can kind of visualize him going out in the woods with something that was the size of a mini refrigerator, it's a pretty amazing feat, and he's a big reason why we have the parks, the beautiful parks that we do in California, because of his photographs. Here's a good example of texture. It's my cat, my tiger cat. The surface quality of an object that we sense through touch. All objects have a physical texture, think horsehair, dolphin smooth. In a two-dimensional work, texture gives a visual sense of how an object depicted will feel if real life, if touched. So with this photograph, I thought it was a good example of texture because you can really feel the sense of his fur. It's a nice close-up of the fur, so you can kind of see the differentiation between all the whiskers and how soft the whiskers would feel and how soft his fur would feel. I like it. My tiger cat. Next is space. Real space is three-dimensional. Space in a work of art refers to a feeling of depth or three dimensions. It can also refer to an artist's use of the area around the picture plane. Positive space is the space occupied by the primary object. So in this, it would be the hand and the arm. And negative space is the space around the primary object, so all of this. You could also argue this is a good illusion of space because you can actually see the idea of it is as the one point perspective where it's all leading to the capital right here. This photograph was by Josef Koudelka, Czechoslovakia in 1968. He is actually marking the time that history is being made. You can see it's an empty street. It's held in Prague, and down the street, you can kind of see a little bit in the middle is the tanks. The tanks are actually rolling in. This is marks the first start of the communist revolution. So here is a close-up of another picture that he took during that day, letting the world know what was going on with the communist revolution. So these are all the people that are not happy at all with the Russians coming in. Another one that has to do with value. This picture is by Ben von Wong, called Redemption of 1912. So value is the lightness or darkness of a surface. It's frequently used when talking about shading, but also important in the study of color. So this photograph is a good example of value because it has kind of a monochromatic tonality in terms of there's all these different shades of orange. So you can see a light shade of orange, a dark shade of orange, you can see a dark kind of orange in the background. This is actually the artist, Ben von Wong. He's in his early 30s. He started doing photography when he was about 27. He learned how to use Photoshop and photography all on his own, and he's a very popular photographer right now. And he learned how to fire breathe. He also added the tattoo and a lot of the muscles in Photoshop, which I think was hysterical. He is also well known for photographing a cancer patient. She actually said, I would really love to get a photograph of myself before I die of cancer, and so he flew across the country and photographed her in some beautiful, beautiful settings. I thought he did a really lovely job.